All right, glad to have you back. Now, President Bola Tinubu last Friday presented the 58.18 trillion naira 2026 appropriation bill to the joint session of the National Assembly, vowing that 2026 will mark a decisive shift towards stronger discipline in budget execution and results-driven governance. President Tinubu said the budget titled Budget of Consolidation, Renewed Resilience and Shared Prosperity is designed to consolidate recent economic reforms and translate stabilizing macroeconomic indicators into improving living standards for Nigerians. The president announced the end to long-standing practice of running multiple budgets in the country. Said the era of overlapping budgets, abandoned projects, inherited obligations, and perpetual rollovers must come to an end if Nigeria is to achieve fiscal discipline and sustainable development. Said the practice of avoiding abandoned projects, piling up contractual obligations, and running multiple budgets on a single inflow has continued to undermine effective governance and economic planning. My guest is Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, is the CEO, UHY Professional Services. It's good to have you on the show and a compliment of the season, Mr. Idahosa.
Thank you, Tolu.
Yes, I think I should let you take us through what you make of this spending plan as presented by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The assumption, some say conservative enough, and some also look at the capital expected expenditure, and of course, just give us a breakdown of what you make of the spending plan.
I think essentially the key word from the budget itself, which is inevitable, is consolidation. It is consolidation because as a country, we had paid the price of the very significant economic reforms in 2023 and in 2024 and 2025. So certainly the economy is reset for consolidation of all those reform benefits, some of which we have seen and some of the rest of which Nigerians are insisting was, as we say proverbially, should be seen on our dinner tables. And so that's the general thinking around what the budget is trying to do. The concern of everyone looking at it is the funding of the budget, how we are going to fund the budget to achieve the successes on the fiscal side of putting more money into the economy, and at the same time servicing the very rapidly rising debt obligations. So there is a concern that given the capacity of the government to increase revenue, that will be still a challenge to achieve that balance between having resources to achieve the capital expenditure and being able to meet those debt obligations at the same time. That is essentially the concern that everyone looking at the budget is. But in terms of driving for consolidation of what has started since 2023, we are on track. The private sector, of course, is playing their big part in that. But whether the government can achieve the revenues that are projected and whether it will be able to service the debts that are already there and the additional debts that it plans to raise to implement the new budget are matters of concern in the sense that they are quite optimistic that all of that can be achieved. Balancing the need for capital expenditure to grow the economy and servicing the debts that are building up and are going to build up over the next year, 2026, as we see in the budget as presented.
The assumptions for me, price of crude, expected crude production, putting about 1.8 million barrels, $64 per barrel for crude. Some say, or I think, in my own thoughts too, as some experts have also alluded to, I say it's conservative enough. Dollar exchange rate at 1,400 naira, considering where we are now, a bit of stability in that space. Our reserves are doing pretty well at above 40 something billion US dollars. So what do you make of those assumptions? How feasible do you see government achieving this?
I think two of the assumptions are on track. The exchange rate certainly on track. The production projection certainly on track. If you look at what the NOCs, the new NOCs that have brought over the IOCs during our recent investments, and see the rate at which they are growing their production capacities across all the onshore wells that they have taken over from the IOCs. There's good reason to believe that we can achieve that, particularly because a lot of that production is coming now from Nigerian-owned oil production companies. And in fact, as we speak, Nigerian-owned production companies are producing more than 50% of the total oil production by Nigeria, oil and gas production. And so it's easier to predict the capacity of the oil and gas industry to achieve their projections. The only concern there, of course, which is security in the oil producing areas. And we can see that part of the reasons why there is optimism for better security around the Niger Delta area is that even the residents of those areas see that a lot of the production are now in the hands of Nigerian-owned companies. And these companies, being Nigerian-owned, are much more able to engage the host communities and resolve issues that led to constant disruption of production. So that was a big achievement in this year that is ending, being able to achieve those divestments, put more and more of the oil production in the onshore and shallow areas in the hands of Nigerian-owned companies run by Nigerians who are very familiar with the Niger Delta terrain. Most of them actually people born and live in that area. Gives a lot of optimism that we can achieve that projection. And so those two definitely. The dollar rate is one that is not completely under the control of Nigeria. It depends on the entire foreign exchange market, what's happening around the world. But I think if you put those two assumptions that are pretty within our control, if you look at what the central bank has achieved in managing our foreign exchange market, there's a lot of confidence that we are on track on those two. And the international market price, probably not very accurate. If you look at all the variables around the world, some of them are changing rapidly. The Ukraine situation, Russia situation, the American government is working extra hard to contain the war there and hopefully get the war under control. Also, the same American government is working extra hard to have peace in the Middle East. If those efforts continue and we don't see any sudden eruptions in those two areas, then it's likely that oil price will be within a fairly good band of these assumptions. But we cannot be sure that we will have sufficient peace throughout 2026 in those key areas that can affect those prices.
Interesting stuff. Now, let's look at the breakdown as we wrap up this segment now. We have 5.41 trillion allocated to defense and security, 3.56 trillion infrastructure, 3.52 trillion to education, 2.48 trillion naira to health. What do you make of this sectoral distribution? Allocation, I beg your pardon.
Well, at this time, Nigeria does not, and it's not likely to have sufficient allocation to education and healthcare, which actually should be the major sectors of concern to the government. Nigeria is forced to put a lot of resources into defense because, again, you need security for the entire economy to happen. So, to a large extent, the room for maneuver for the federal government is not there. The investment in defense has to continue, and then whatever is left is now spent on addressing the two most important sectors for socio-economic development, actually, which is education and healthcare. You need investment in education, both formal, technical, and adult education, to have the human resources to grow the rest of the economy, to even manage our security. Our security operatives have to be well educated, both formally and informally. So there isn't more room maneuver in terms of their allocation. But again, the primary concern of Nigerians is the efficiency in the management of those resources. So if you allocate X billions for defense, how much of that is translating into the market value for the equipment that are acquired? How much of that is allocated for the welfare of our men in uniform actually gets to them at the right time in the right values to enable them continue to do their work of protecting the country? So those are the concerns, and not just the numbers. The relative numbers are inevitable because of where we are. But how efficiently, for example, what's into education? How prudent are our investments in education across the line from universities to primary school? How efficient are they? How much of it is wasted or just simply stolen in the process of implementing these projects? That is where the question really are. The government cannot now say we are not going to put money in security because we want to fix all our schools, we want to get the best healthcare services. It can't do that because the security situation is looming around us. So yes, those relative figures are forced on us by circumstances. But of course, outside allocation is the fact that we need to look at our defense strategy and see how we can actually reduce defense spending by improving our security infrastructure. Because you don't really need jet fighters and armored cars to improve security if we deal with our security infrastructure from federal, state, and local governments.
Amos, thank you so much. That's our time today. Thank you for joining the program. We still have a lot to talk about. I hope we'll be having you join us again soon. The CEO, UHRY Professional Services, is Mr. Gabriel Idahosa. Thank you for always being there. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
And a Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you, to the same to you.
All right, then. As we wrap this up now, let's just tell you that